What I've learned that I've always struggled with is who I thought I was versus who I really was. And often who I thought I was informed by other people's inputs and those things that they deposited in me that made me have a difficult time seeing actually what I was capable of. And that's what I think sometimes we have to really think about, are those inputs. Because those inputs are going to have a certain output. And if you have the wrong inputs consistently, then you will never be able to produce the outputs that you have the potential to be able to produce. And it's not just others. Sometimes we tell ourselves things like, I can't do that, or I can't be this. I've said that to myself time and time again. Where I came from, people don't do that or do this. And we exert these limitations on ourselves that not only hinder us and where we could go or what we could be, but it gives us a deformed reality of who we are. And then oftentimes we begin to take the roads that are easier just because we feel like we don't have the capability to achieve at certain levels. And so what I have to remember is not only the inputs that come from others, but I have to remember the inputs that come from myself and that can deform my reality. And this comes up, in a lot of concepts. And one of those concepts that we know is imposter syndrome. And I had a great example of imposter syndrome when I was growing up. I was in college. I was an undergraduate, and I had achieved an internship with the New York Times Company. New York Times Company had what they call the Shared Services Center in Norfolk, Virginia. At that time, I was attending Old Dominion University. I was an English minor. I had started an on-campus newsletter, and that got me in the door for this internship that they had. And I was doing a great job. I was learning how to work on their internet. I was writing articles. I was doing beats for the internal company newsletter. It was called Sharing Successes. I was doing document design. I learned Quark Express. I learned what was the Adobe suite at that time. Things have changed a little bit now with Adobe acquiring everything. And I had a knack for it. I had a knack for writing. I learned how to edit. I had a great editor. His name was Tom Knopfsinger, and he really was patient with me. And he saw what I was capable of, and he put certain inputs in me during that time to help me believe that I was capable of working at this world-renowned company. And I'm just a 19-year-old kid that came through poverty, somehow made it to college when many of my friends and my peers did not. And here I am at the New York Times Company. And where that imposter syndrome or that bad input came was not externally at that job. It actually came from myself. Whereas I actually told myself constantly that I didn't deserve to be there. There was one situation where there was a snow day. Pretty much everything was shut down in Norfolk. It rains a lot, but it doesn't snow a lot. And on that snow day, a lot of people did not come to the office. And in that building at the World Trade Center in downtown Norfolk, not the one in New York, there's a World Trade Center there. There's a high-end restaurant within that building. And I thought it was a more relaxed day, which it was because it was snowing. People could kind of dress down. And I had some jeans on. At that time, Fat Farm was the thing. So I had some Fat Farm jeans and even had some Fat Farm Wallaby Clarks, the shoes. And I also had on like a baseball jersey. It was a dress down day. But it just so happened that day, the HR director and my boss, Tom, were going to go to the restaurant to get something to eat within the building. And I got there, we had lunch, but people there were, of course, dressed in a different way. Very much so professionally, high level. I felt like I had really missed the mark, so much so that I had internalized this belief that I didn't belong and I shouldn't be there. And I began to wear this while I was in the space. And I really probably could have stuck around at that job for longer than I did. I stayed there for nearly a year. So 2 semesters, which is a long time for an internship. But I think I probably could have stayed on, but I psyched myself out of it. And I was able to find an off-ramp for myself because I believed that I didn't belong. And so what I want to say today in this idea of defying gravity is that the gravity that is imposed on us sometimes can come from others on the outside. But that gravity sometimes comes from ourselves, where we tell ourselves that we're not capable of doing something. So the moral of the story is that you can't always trust the inputs that you get from others. But sometimes you can. Sometimes people have your best interests in mind, like it was in my case. But the other thing is that you have to watch what you tell yourself and the inputs you give yourself to inform who you are. Because the gravity that we seek to defy often is imposed even by ourselves. And we have to be careful that we don't impose certain levels of gravity because of our own self-doubt or the things that we think that we can't accomplish because of where we came from or what we look like. No doubt, there's going to be some struggles, and there are going to be some fights, and there are going to be some things that you're going to have to overcome. But in the process, we can't tell ourselves that we can't. We have to tell ourselves that we can, that we are capable, and that we are more than we think we are at this moment.